Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, esteemed former estate agent and currently chairman and co-owner of Peterborough United. I wish that I could say that you had a good week football-wise. I know you've been on the road a little bit. How's your weekend been?
Yeah, it's really busy. I mean, obviously, as everyone knows, I hadn't seen my family for 60 days. So I put a couple of plans in place for when I got home. You know, my daughter, during COVID, Harry Styles was meant to come to Orlando, and then there was an issue, and I promised I'd bring her to see Harry. Yeah, she fucking loves Harry Styles. So I'd organised basically a trip to New York for her little sister, my wife, my niece. And we flew to New York on Thursday. And Chase Bank, who I bank with, are very good to me. They get me US Open tennis tickets, and they managed to get me a box, at Madison Square Garden, which is superb because I don't do crowds. I certainly don't do crowds of 13 and 14-year-olds with pride flags fucking smashing me in the back of the head, including my own daughter, at the event. So we went to the concert. We stayed in the plaza. We had a great day in New York. Stayed away from the streets. Do you know what I mean? Just did the horse carriage ride. Took a car to MSG. And then, she just had the time of her life. It was fucking superb. And Harry was fair play to Harry, even in his jumpsuit and whatever he wears. Do you know what I mean? He is very, very good. And it was a great night. And it's just nice to see my girls smiling. And then Friday we dropped them home. And then I promised I was taking my missus to the Canelo Triple G fight. I'm a big Canelo fan. I've seen all his fights. So we flew straight back out to Vegas on Friday. And I was meeting a pal of mine from the UK, Ian, who's a Posh fan as well, and his wife, and we stayed in the area, and I got a box for the Canelo fight, and just basically Vegas. And obviously the only thing was obviously Saturday morning I got up at 7 a.m. to, even though I'd been up till 4 drinking, to watch my beloved Posh, as I had last Tuesday again, against Fleetwood. So it's been poor. It's been poor. There's no getting away from it, Phil. We're having a horrible run. It's amazing. I said to the gaffer on Saturday, 3 weeks ago we smashed Lincoln, should have been 10-0. And all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you can't win in 6, and it's losing league games and, all the things that are happening, the red card at Derby, the Portsmouth game that's, 50-50, smashing Fleetwood at home in the EFL Trophy, and you should be 10-0 up, but you lose 2-1. Fleetwood, okay, we weren't great. They weren't great either. And again, it's a sucker punch. It's, the cogs are at the moment having a tough time, moving. And then we go to Bolton. And Bolton are a really good team. And they deserve to win the game. There was no me saying like Portsmouth or whatever else. Bolton deserved to win. Let's get that straight. Their goalkeeper, could have gone on holiday. They deserve. And I'm not saying anything here that's controversial or to upset anyone. The gaffer would agree with me on that. Bolton deserved to win. Yes, it was a tight game. Defensively, we were very good, but offensively, we just didn't show up. So we're having a really, really tough time. And obviously, me and the gaff don't speak on a Saturday usually. His way of doing it is he likes to speak on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. But I messaged him, I went down after the game at it was 9 a.m. Vegas time. The missus was like, do you want to go for a coffee and a walk? I said, yeah, sure. So we went for a walk and went to the slots, for a couple of hours, kill a bit of time. I think I lost $2,000 in about 20 minutes. And I just messaged the gaffer and said, look, I know you like speaking on Sundays, but it's a long drive home. Do you need a chat? Do you need to pick me up? Because I can only imagine how fucking that drive. I mean, Baz was suicidal on his drive home. Do you know what I mean? And it is a long old drive. So, I had a really good chat with the manager, as I had done after the Fleetwood game. And I was just like, look, you have to stick to your guns. There's a way you wanted to play in the summer. There's a way, you want a recruitment designed for you. There's a way, and we started that against Cheltenham. And then we went away from it at half time because we were 2-0 down. And I said, you know what it's like to win a league title. I don't. So you have to, my from day one has always been my full support in the manager and the staff. And this isn't a vote of confidence. I'm just explaining the process of they know what they want staff-wise. They know what they want facilities-wise. They know what they want when you're recruiting and players and everything else. And I just said to him, win, lose, or draw. And this was before Bolton. You pick and you do what you think, is going to get you a promotion, is going to get you success. Yes, the 3 at the back has won certain games and then we've gone on this run. But if you feel as the players you've got, this is the way you need to play, you've got to stick to your guns. You've got to be confident in your own ability. Of course he's got the support. There's never been any doubt about that from us. We invested a lot of money in this management team to suddenly go 4 or 5 months later, well, that's it, we're moving on. I'm not 3 years into the job anymore. I've been in it nearly 17 years. So my call was more about just getting in his head making sure he's okay, and saying to him, look, go home, have a few drinks, smash the missus, do what you got to do, go again on Monday, the staff okay, and then say, look, you've got a lot of experienced players and they really need to step up and they really need to dig us out of this because, if you're playing a team and it's like just a load of 19 and 21-year-olds floating around the pitch with no experience, whatever, you're like, okay, they're having a tough time. But when you look through the team, and this is what I laugh about the recruitment shit and this is shit, whatever else, a big part of that squad and team have won promotion from League One.
Yeah.
The management staff have won a title from League One. There's a lot of things there in place where they should never ever lose 6 games in a row. No football team should. Doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are, whatever. But confidence is very fickle in football. Just like it can go the other way. You win one game, you can win 5. Mm-hmm. So I say, I look at it and go, you've got players in there who've played a lot of games, and they've got to stand up and be counted now. There's no shirking it now. They've got to lead from the front. Forget about digging out 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds or 21-year-olds. They're not the problem. The players who've got a lot of league appearances under their belt, who've got promotions under their belt, they're the ones now who are playing well below their level. So can they blame the manager? Blame them? No, they've got to look in the mirror. And what I did enjoy was I listened to Nathan Thompson's interview after the game. And it was probably the best 6-minute interview I've heard from a player. Very captain-like. Mm-hmm. And anyone who hasn't listened to it, go on Posh Plus and listen to it. He was absolutely phenomenal. And it actually made me feel better, listening to him talk. We're having a tough time, but it's not going to define our season. And I know, people are probably losing their shit and whatever else, but we've got to get back on that horse quickly. One win will lead to a lot of wins, and that's what we've got to do. And we've got to stick to our guns. We've got a really, really good squad. I've said it before. Forget all the nonsense, the crap, the jokes, and I like to wind people up with stuff. We've got throughout the squad, we've got players every team in our league, even in the champ, would want in their team. So those players now have to, I said to the manager, sometimes the best way through things, the adversity and everything else is hard work harder. When things aren't going your way, and I've had this in my own life, and I've said it to my kids, and I've said it to the manager, work harder, dig in, work harder. The harder you work, the more luckier you get, the more things come your way. Don't go the other way. You got to graft. So, we've got to get back in the training ground and we've got to work harder. And the win comes, you work harder after that and get the next win. So that is how I feel about it, But yeah, I mean, it's, I think you wanted to ask me about some of the stuff floating around. No,
yeah, a lot of rumours that I've been reading and things over the last few days.
Yeah, it's mental because my pal who's with me in Vegas, he's a Posh fan, and he said to me on Saturday night before the fight, Jesus, the Rumour Mill, you've left, Randy's left, Jason's left, the manager's been fired, his assistant's left, and I'm like, what the fuck? Because I did not go on social media. Mm-hmm. So because I'm away, I was like, I'll leave it till Monday, and I go on Monday. Because, I'm with my wife, it's our first time away in a couple of months. I do deserve a bit of time off sometimes. I was like, I've done my bit, I've spoke to the manager, now I'm going to have the weekend now, the fight, whatever, and I'll deal with that on Monday. So he starts saying all this to me, and I'm like, I've got no idea. I've no idea where this crap comes from. You know what I mean? I'm straight as a car. I would just tell you. And it's amazing, really, how losing football games can make a part of a fan base just lose their shit. And when I say a part, it's not the majority, it's a part. And it's usually the same part. You look at a fan base and the fans who've been there a long time. And win, lose, or draw, they're pretty much the same. And then you got that fan base. I want to say it's younger, because there are a couple of more experienced ones in there trolling and enjoying it. And they're just completely roller coaster. You're winning, they're very quiet. But they'll find reasons to moan. You're losing, it's like optimized. They're loving it. You know what I mean? And whatever. So, and then I got a message, I think it was off Randy when I got off the plane yesterday. We jetted into Orlando, and I got a message off him saying, geez, have you seen all this stuff and forums? I don't read forums. My partners are still pretty new to the game. I did it way back when I first bought the club. You're on a forum. Oh, you win. It's great. All the comments. As you learn as the years go by, you stay away from that shit. And obviously, I think they read the forums. So they're seeing all this speculation and all this nonsense. I mean, none of us are talking to each other, which is really funny because there's an owner's chat on WhatsApp that, if you see the messages on a match day, it'd be quite hilarious, actually. Do you know what I mean? After the game, because I'm superstitious, no one's allowed message during the game, so it's always after the game. So, yeah, I mean, I think Jason's last message was, after Randy said that was, oh, don't worry, all is good. That they want the manager fired and D-Max recruitment shit, so happy days. you know, and I'm like, fucking charming, you know what I mean? Like, I could throw it my way, it's fine. So that was that. So, was there any other rumors I need to address?
No, it's funny. I saw about Jason and Randy unfollowing each other on social media. Was one
I
of the ones
can't
I was
speak.
reading about.
I can't speak for that.
Yeah.
You know, I'll let them address that crap. I presume they still follow me, and I still follow them. You know,
Well, it sounds like they're still talking to each other. You're in the group chat together, so.
Well, are they talking to me? You know, I don't know. You know, so at the end of the day, they can address that. That's look at the end. Yeah, look, I'm chairman, El Presidente. I own half of the club. Still go to work every day. Still do my bit. You know, they're doing their own bits. You know, what goes on in their own private business, that's down to them. You know, to discuss or whatever else. But yeah, as an ownership, we're talking. We do it on WhatsApp, and we're having a Zoom call at the end of this week. Yeah, it's business as usual.
Yeah.
So, anything else there?
Now, there's a great conspiracy around the CEO role and how it's all interconnected with each other, and that, you know, signifies something that's going on behind the scenes now. You probably can't say what's going on.
Is that why we're not winning?
Reasons. Yeah.
Is that why we're not winning? Is it because the CEO conspiracy?
You know, there's a big. It's all interconnected, which means there's all these troubles going on. You know, what can you say about what's going on from a CEO perspective?
So what I can say is we've got a brilliant CEO in place at the moment in Leighton. And anyone who's met Leighton, the fans groups, or anyone at the club who's dealt with him, who deals with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of non-football stuff, because the CEO doesn't deal with football stuff at our club. We got a great person in the seat. So I don't know why people are panicking or losing their crap over it. The previous CEO still works for the club. And in time, obviously, you know, full information will be obviously spoken about, but it's not something we can go into now. But at the moment, we have a fantastic CEO running the club. And not only that, Bob Sims is still there every match day. He's still there behind the scenes when he's needed. You know, there's no, you know, again, I wish I could blame a CEO for losing 6 games of football. I wish I could take responsibility and say, shit, I should have taken that chance in front of the goal, or I should have, like, you know, stopped that deflection going in or whatever else. But it's not how football works. You know, so stuff off of the pitch. If people want to build it up like there's some great conspiracy and Peterborough's like crap off the pitch, it did it. No, I'm sorry. I would love to go, hey, yeah, I blame all of that. All of this stuff is, like, you know, creating the first team not to win. No, and you know, everyone loves to make an excuse, cover their ass. But again, being completely transparent with you, no. So, you know, move on. Next question. What's the next conspiracy? You know, because it's madness. You know, I would just say to people, stop like going on forums and writing stuff that you know nothing about. Stop making comments. Stop, you know, I don't know, you know, to find out somebody's unfollowed somebody on Twitter takes a certain amount of devious investigating going on there. It's not something I'd ever look into or even notice. So I was astonished even by that when I was told that, you know.
Does it affect the club in any way? So, or is there, you know, the club, like when you look inside the club and more playing staff and the management side of things, you know, affecting the football, or do people looking and say, you know what, that's noise. It's not even worth, you know.
I'm kind of the football side of things. So, you know, I guess if I, you know, suddenly disappeared tomorrow, you know, I don't know, would it affect things? Who knows? I'm sure they'd still go and play a football game. You know, but obviously, yeah, if I wasn't there tomorrow, there'd be uncertainty about, you know, what's going on and but I would never do that. It's not my intention. I'm still speaking to everybody. So, you know, again, that's me addressing this. And no, the football side of the club's not going to make excuses about anything else that's going on at the club for not winning. The football side of the club has everything they need. They've got a phenomenal training ground. They've got a phenomenal home pitch. They've got phenomenal big staff. They're a phenomenal squad of players. They've got a phenomenal academy and under-23s to dip into. We're just having a shit run. So we need to buy a win. You know, we need to, you know, win a game of football. You know, none of these losses or issues or whatever are to do with anything else. So again, it's not, I can understand when a club is in big trouble or players aren't getting paid or this is going on or whatever. I can understand when you see that in football. That's not the situation here. So again, you know, I've always said to like fans and stuff like, you know, you put out stuff that you don't know anything about. It's incendiary. It's inflammatory. It's not fair, you know. So I've always been proud of the fact we run a really good club. Our staff are very secure in their jobs. You know, that's the way we operate. So yeah, of course we've had an awful run of games, and you know we're not firing on all cylinders and whatever else. But being in football long enough to know, as much as you can't buy a win, you get a win, and then it's like, well, hey, I can't lose for a while. So it is what it is, you know what I mean? But we got to start winning again, and we got to do it soon.
Does the run of form affect how you go into the Papa John's trophy?
Yeah, I mean, look, if it were me, I would certainly play the same team Tuesday that I was playing on Saturday. Me, but I don't pick the team. But if it were me, I would, because I would go, right, although Tottenham have got good youngsters, you would favour our team if they play well to win the game. So let's go out and try and score some goals. Let's get some confidence back in front of goal. Because the worst part is, on all the stat metrics, up until Bolton, we were hitting every metric we needed to. 19 shots on goal, 12 on target. That is the winning formula. And we hit that in even the games we lost. The Portsmouth game, the Derby, you look through it and we were hitting every metric, amount of entries into the opposition box, amount of crosses into the box. There's a certain design. And the manager actually created the template based on his own success winning the league. And we've been hitting every single metric, yards run, everything per game, bar Saturday. So maybe that was just, we've had such a shitty run, just suddenly it's you know what, even on Saturday, we dug in, we've defended well, we're not at our best. And you're like, you know what, okay, you take your point, you move on. And then in the 87th minute, it's a nothing shot that, your son would save, my young daughter would save. And unfortunately, the goalie dived, it's hit Ronnie's heel, and it's bounced 5 times into the net the other side. And 9 times out of 10, that doesn't go anywhere near the goal. And they're the little things when your luck is against you, and we need lady luck to change, and we need it to go the other way. So that's just football. But what we need to get back to doing is we need to get back to creating chances. Because eventually, with the quality we have in front of goal, they'll take the chances. So that's where I am in that, and rumours and everything else. So yeah, the one thing we'll say about our podcast is we don't shirk or shy away from facts. I said to you just before, we aren't CNN. Facts matter. And
I could have a debate with you about Fox every day.
Here we go. I knew that was coming. So we're gonna be full transparency on everything. And I've always been that way.
Yeah.
And I know there are some people, I've seen a couple of comments about, you should be at the club and da. But well, no, I mean, I've done my bit over the summer. I'm not needed at the club right now. I'm needed at home.
Yeah.
So they're more important than the club, if I'm honest with you. Yeah. I always have been, always will be. So, but the club has everything it needs. So at the end of the day, I need everyone at the club to do their job. And I need some of the fans who are getting a little bit overexcited, calm down. Just calm down a little bit. So, recruitment's not shit. The team's not shit. The manager's not shit. None of those things are true. But what also is true is we're not great at the moment, but we're not shit. So, and it's getting that in between, and we will. So that's where. So enough about Peterborough. Let's talk about the mighty Bantams.
Yeah. And I do have to give a shout out for producer Henry, because he was a happy chap as a Bolton fan.
Fuck Henry. Fuck
so
Henry.
I had to get you saying that on record.
No, fuck him. He emailed me 2 days before the game, and I was like, what are you doing? You know what I'm like? Whatever else. So I'm like, and I just fucking knew it when he emailed. I'm like, they're going to win. And he's going to be like fucking enjoying that. So no, tell Henry, never again. So
I needed to get that so that I was off the ship.
By the way, Henry, we love you, but still fuck you. So yeah, so anyway. But listen, in other news, the boxing was great. Harry Styles was wonderful. My Patriots in Tampa won yesterday in the NFL, so there was some positivity.
and Ivan Toney got called up for England.
Yeah, fantastic. And I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon like everyone else on social media, rimming him, about that, only because I always expected him to play for England. Delighted for him. I had every journalist coming at me for questions about add-ons and this, that, whatever. We were very comfortable with the deal we did for Ivan. There's no international add-on. You get paid when you do an international cap, and we've had it in the past. It's based on a competitive international cap. It can't be a friendly. It has to be. So I think it's the Nations Cup they're playing, and it has to be a start. And I got offered at the time when I was doing the deal with Rasmus, who was the technical director at Brentford. I got obviously I got the fee, and then it was $1 million on promotion, $1 million on games, $1 million on goals. It was $1 million for them staying up. And then we talked international cap, and it was my idea more than the international cap was, give me another $1 million and you're staying up a second season, which you usually don't get. You usually just get one-offs on all of those things. So I'm very comfortable with the deal we've got. Not to mention, obviously, when he gets sold for 60, 70 million,
increases valuation, doesn't he? When he's got
we're still in the green. Yeah. But more than that, I was really happy for the lad. I was really happy because he deserved the call up. I've been crying about this for years. Like, he's, with all due respect to Watkins, to, you know, even Callum Wilson, who's a brilliant striker, but he's never fit. Ivan Toney, touch wood, he's durable. He plays 50 games a year. And not only that, what Ivan Toney can give Southgate, which Southgate will probably love because he's defensive minded, he is the best defender in the other box on set plays and corners. Yep. He's as good as anybody. And if you watch him this season, if he played for Chelsea or if he played for Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, he'd be a £100 million player. Mm-hmm. If Lukaku's a £100 million player, you know, if some of these players and the valuations you see, and I've said this before, you know, he's coming into the peak years of his life. And the great thing is his game's not based on pace. He's that target type player. They get better as they get older.
Yeah, so if he loses a bit of pace, it's not going to slow him down.
He's never been ultra quick anyway, but it's the upside in him as a player. Look, Brentford is such a well-run club, but I would imagine if he does what I think he'll do this season, it's going to be very difficult to stand in his way if a top 6 club comes in for him next summer. You know, but I would say they'd be very happy if they, you know, they stay in the league, they get X amount of money and they can go out and replenish. So, no, very happy for him, and great to see another one. And then young Ronnie got a promotion. He went from the England under-19s to the England under-20s. So that was great. Next step up was the under-21s. Young Joe Taylor got called up by Wales under-21s, you know, which again, he's 19. He's had a great start to the season. He's now the leading goal scorer in the under-21s again. He's scored his first competitive goal for the first team. I think Lucas was on standby. Jack Taylor was on standby. You know, you need 3 to get a game off, but I think we made the call anyway that we're going to, you know, go ahead with the game.
All right. Well, no, it was good to see that, you know, you keep on getting this recognition for the kids, and it demonstrates, you know, the value of even younger kids coming and being a part 100%. Of the academy.
No, listen, I've always said this, you know, the club, like academy-wise, under 20, we're good. We're really good. It's like I said, you get some wins and all of it put together and everyone's like in paradise. So it's wins. Wins change everything. So that's what we need to do. It doesn't matter how we get them. We need to get a couple of wins and we're off and running again. So,
and that's what we've been enjoying for the...
You've been on a run. How many have you won in a row now?
So I think it's unbeaten in 5 or 6 at the moment.
Wow.
You know, we since we last recorded, we beat Tranmere away and we beat...
Great result at Tranmere.
Which it was. It's always a tough place to go to.
And then you battered Stevie Evans and Stevenage. You were in great form.
Yeah. You know, and in both of those games, it wasn't like we ran away with the game or anything, but we just, you know, took our chances. We had great game management.
Mark Hughes is turning Andy Cook into a proper striker. Am I right?
What's that all about? He's got 11 goals so far.
No, but is that the Mark Hughes striker effect? Because Andy Cook's always had potential. He scored a hat-trick against us years ago. Yeah. But it's obviously his professionalism or his fitness or his conditioning, and I don't want to dig him out because I've said recently I like him. But he's obviously the pennies dropped, and Mark Hughes is making him. He will be the best player in League Two with the way you start the season. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when Mark Hughes walked through the door on the day he was appointed, by all accounts, Andy Cook's kind of jaw hit the floor as to, you know, the opportunity. And I think that he also realised that he's probably not long for the club if he doesn't turn himself around. You know, we brought in replacements in the summer, which has actually motivated him. And, you know, that can go one of two ways, can't it? Either you like, well, screw you then. If you don't think I'm good enough, I want to move on. Or I'm going to put my head down.
Right. And that shows deep down he's a good character. Mm-hmm. And that shows deep down he's got what it takes. And I like that. I like to see a player respond to that and do what he's done. So kudos to him. And obviously he's a big part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And he's, he's been in the right place at the right time, but as Mark said on Saturday, it was more than just the goals. You know, he's all around game and bringing players in, and he's doing a lot for the team. He's not just, you know, standing on the 6-yard line waiting for the ball to come in.
Did you call him Mark? I didn't know you and him were pals.
I guess we're not quite. Mr. Hughes.
Mark said this on Saturday. I love it. Listen, that's what you want to see. You want to see fans like you completely in love with a manager, engaged, you know, and we've always said Bradford's that sleeping giant. You know, by January they continue this. I mean, that place will be sold out every weekend.
It's funny, you know, when Phil Parkinson was there, you know, he was the last manager that people got to know by, you know, thought of him as his first name. Yeah. Because it felt like he was just, you know, belonged.
The one.
And that's what it kind of feels like now. I know he's not been there for long, but He's just got everyone together, like this togetherness and
No, brilliant.
professionalism, and a lot of things that we feel that we're missing. And of course, wins help, but I think we were kind of feeling that. I think last year when he came, it was this, we can't believe we hit the jackpot here, because we
Sure.
didn't believe in ourselves still.
Sure.
There's that, the imposter syndrome of we're not good enough. And
No,
now,
of course. Every club goes through that. But he's showing his commitment to you has been brilliant. Your commitments, fair play to Ryan and the ownership, because they've obviously backed him and they've given him all the tools he needs. And he, in turn, is taking that and making your players better.
Yeah.
A la Andy Cook.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than the manager coming in, taking a player that you thought, well, shit, we've never got the best out of this player. Previous manager recruited him. And then you get a new manager comes in and makes them a player. And that is good coaching. But sometimes you miss that, in football, where you say, so I used to do this with my managers. Every 3 months I'd go, right, tell me which players have improved under you the last 3 months, particularly the younger ones.
Yeah.
Who's improved or who's gone backwards? Because that's always a sign your coaching team are really good at what they do.
Yeah, and it's not all clicked yet. I think that's what's really interesting, is like what happens when it all clicks. I've talked about the kind of talent. I mean, the talent's on a different level than anything we've had in this league. It's all got to gel. Of course, it's kind of cliche, but I think that we still haven't got there yet. What's really interesting, and it's interesting to me because I look at, the stick that you're getting for recruiting forward players.
Yeah.
And, well, you've got too many wingers, or you've got too many, why aren't you replacing a number 10 or whatever? Well, we've gone that route as well. And so we've got so many wide players. But what it's showing is that it gives you different options. Like when one option isn't working, then you bring somebody else on. You've got another winger who's just as good, but takes a different approach.
And
so
to
the
let you in
opposition
the
have got something
secret,
different to think about.
Our manager was very, very strong on 4-3-3 in the summer and recruiting for 4-3-3 and having 4 or 5 wingers, because you play 2 either side of the striker.
Yeah.
So you go 4-3 and then your main striker and then a winger to the right, a winger to the left. A 10 was never a big part of that. It was always about the wide players. Like some of our fans are calling us Winger United or whatever else. But that was what he wanted. And he's right. Pace, that's how he won the league. And that's what he wants. So granted, our wingers haven't stepped up to the plate yet. Granted, we've only played 4-3-3 for one half against Cheltenham and for obviously against Bolton on Saturday, because obviously what happened at Cheltenham kind of kicked us into going back to 3 at the back. So that's what the recruitment was done for. And you back your manager, and the manager's right. That's what he wants. That's the way he wants to play. But at the same time, those players that we have could play a 4-4-2. They could play a 4-2-3-1. They could play a 3-4-2-1 or whatever they call it. They can play in all those positions, and the age of some of those wide players, they can become 10s as well. You see that in football. Poku is a 10 and he can be a winger, and we saw that when he decimated Hull in pre-season, but then he got injured. So we do. Ricky J. Jones was a striker in the youth team. The manager sees him as a left-sided wide player. At his age. So because he's 19, but that doesn't mean he can't develop into a striker. These are the things. So. It's having players that can play in so many different positions. He wanted Efron Clark because he can play as a 9 as well as a wide player. And again, we're 2 or 3 games into some of these people's careers, right? And it's like, come at they. But obviously, when you're not winning, the focus is on, well, those players aren't good enough. Well, okay, just take a beat. David Ajiboye will be a very, very good player for our club. He's dominating in under 23 games. The manager said when we signed him, Chairman, you do know we won't see the best of this boy till November onwards. It's going to take him a little bit of settling in. So, you trust in that, when you hear that from your coaches. So you're absolutely right when you talk about, Bradford and the recruitment and what they recruit. You obviously got it spot on because you're winning games. If you lost 4 or 5 games, I'm sure everyone would say you did a shit job.
Yeah, and I think people would question. We had an overabundance of wingers, and we brought 2 more wingers in deadline day. But now you're seeing, with injuries, and sometimes you've got to unlock. People come to City and park the bus, which I'm sure they will do for you because you won the favourite. So it's like, how do you unlock that? And what's worked for us so far is we've unlocked it by not necessarily the starting 11, but by bringing on wingers, 60, 70 minutes in and trying something different.
And you made a great point there. Probably the biggest weakness for us, bar the Cheltenham game, is the rest of the season, our subs haven't impacted like we thought they would.
Yeah.
And they still will. but they haven't done it so far. We've got an amazing amount of talent on the bench, and we changed the game from 2-0 down to winning, and that was the subs. But since then, there hasn't been that impact off the bench that we would have liked to have seen. And that's down to the players. That's not on me, the management squad. That's the players who have to do that. So you're spot on when you say that. Having that variety that you can change in game, during games, or whatever else is like critical, particularly in a long season. So and having pace and having all of that can come off and just change a game. Do you know what I mean? So, and we'd have liked to have seen more of that impact. Like, we played Fleetwood and we had 35 crosses against Fleetwood into the box. But unfortunately, the players didn't really utilize a plan B. They weren't making decisions in the right areas. Fleetwood defended brilliantly. Okay, stop with that. If it's a low block, how are we going to play? And the players are trusted to do that in game, and they didn't do it. And that's maybe, if they've won 5 in a row, they probably would have done it. They would have changed, and they would have won that game. Do you know what I mean? So it's all those little margins. You know what I mean? So where are you now? You must be flying high up in the league.
Yeah, we're 6th, I think. But of course, don't look at the table yet. But yes, nope. I think we're in 6th.
Brilliant.
Which is nice. It's or maybe
Brilliant.
Even 5th. But it's nice to see, 9 games in, starting to get the momentum. We've got another home game on Saturday. We've got Wimbledon at home.
Okay.
So, it's funny. The game against Tranmere is one that in previous seasons we'd have lost. We went 1-0 up early. Should have been 3-0 up after 10 minutes. We weren't. They got back into the game, equalised, and they looked like they could run away with the game. And that was when the changes came in. Made the changes, made the formation change, and then you start again, and we're able to come out of that with a win. So that's really been the difference. And then Stevenage, it was typical Steve Evans tactics. But they've had a great start. They're on form. And, he came away at the end saying that he felt it wasn't a 3-0 scoreline, and he was probably right. It wasn't a 3-0 scoreline. But again, those teams would ordinarily come into town and we would succumb.
You go under.
And we'd succumb to the antics. Whereas this time the antics kind of fired us up rather than, doing the opposite. So promising signs at least.
Well, good. What else has been going on in football?
Yeah, so you were being away. I think you missed a bunch of stuff that went on.
I did. Bring me up to date. Bring me up to speed.
Let's have a look. So in the Premier League, what have we got of note? So Forest continued their pretty tough start, losing 3-2 at home to Fulham. We had Man City kind of walking away with it against Wolves, beating them 3-0, as can be expected. Spurs 6, Leicester 2. I mean, is Brendan Rodgers a dead man walking at this point?
Yeah, I'm amazed. Yeah, I'm amazed he's still there. Fair play. I mean, if he turns this around, it'll be the best turnaround in a long time. Forest, I would imagine he'll be out of a job if they lose another couple of games. Yeah. I'd be surprised if he wasn't, which would be a real shame after what he did last year. I think Arsenal top of the table still, my tip, even though they're 2 years ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So they're flying. My beloved Liverpool, obviously, the weekend up as the Queen and security and stuff. I know you're going to probably moan about the fixture pile-up, but I would also say he's secretly happy that he's getting a little bit of rest time to get, injured players back, which is what they need. So it's not a bad thing to have had that break and press the reset button. What else has gone on in football?
If we go into the Championship, Huddersfield got a win at Cardiff, and Cardiff sacked Steve Morrison.
Yeah, seen that. Huddersfield managerless, Cardiff obviously managerless. I think Hartlepool sacked their manager. A lot of jobs suddenly become available now.
Yeah, Keith Curle just went in there today.
Oh, okay. Where? Hartlepool?
Maybe interim.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, that one seemed like an inevitability from the start of the season. Did Paul Hartley losing? I think he brought a ton of people from Scotland, and it just obviously hasn't worked.
No, there's a lot of jobs available now. Hopefully my ex-gaffer will try and get himself in there and amongst the mix. As League One hasn't had many jobs, has it come available?
No, I think it's mostly been the Championship and League Two.
Yeah.
We had Rochdale and Hartlepool both losing their managers. They're the bottom two by a distance already. So, panic stations, I guess.
Of course.
What else we got going on? So in the Championship, shout out to Sunderland in the playoff spots, 2-2 away at Watford.
Not shocked.
We had Preston finally conceding more than one goal in a game. They
lost
2-0 at home to Sheffield United. who are top.
Sheffield United are obviously going to win that league by 15 points at this rate.
Looking that way, isn't it? And Reading holding their own. They beat Wigan away 1-0.
Fair play to Incy.
So they're third in the table right now. West Brom, fourth bottom. How did they do? Did they draw? They drew.
They drew. Yeah, they probably saved his job. I'd imagine he's gone soon. So far too much talent in that squad to be struggling. So I would imagine that's the next big job that's going to become available.
Yeah, and Middlesbrough, who third bottom still, who we both kind of talked up a little bit in pre-season. How did they do at the weekend? Their result. They drew 0-0 at home to Rotherham.
Yeah, Rotherham have had a phenomenal start. Yeah, Waller's got to be under pressure. Obviously, he did a lot of moaning in the summer about recruitment. And, and I said at the time, you're moaning at your dressing room, you're moaning at the club. Sometimes it's not always a good thing. So it'll be interesting to see if he turns that around. So obviously we know what a quality manager he is. So it will be fascinating to watch. But again, I guess you say early days, but after 9 or 10 games, it's not that early. So, patterns start taking shape and place.
So in League One, let's see what other results we had of interest in League One. We had Bristol Rovers 3, Lincoln 6. That seemed like it came out of nowhere.
Wow. Fair play.
And let's see, Derby beat Wickham 2-1. Burton finally got on the board with a win, 2-0 away at Exeter. And I mean, Exeter's always a hard place to go to.
Yeah, and they made a great start to the season, so that's a great win. Fair play.
And Morecambe getting their win with away at Forest Green. So Forest Green 1, Morecambe 2, with a very late goal there. Let's see, Portsmouth 2, Plymouth 2. That was a very late equaliser from Portsmouth, or else Plymouth had been walking away from there with a win.
Wow. Fair play. And then Wednesday, I think, drew 2-2 with Ipswich.
Which was they were 2-0 down with 15 minutes to go. Oh, wow. So they put that around in the last 15 minutes.
At their place again, you go to some of these grounds, the fans are sucking the ball into the net, aren't they? Such as the size of them. Anyway, let's move on to League Two.
Yeah, League Two, we have. So what of note in League Two? Crawley continued their struggles. They lost at home to Crewe, so Crawley are now, let's see, I think they're fourth or fifth bottom after all the noise that they made in pre-season. So that was a tough start to the season for them. Swindon got a good win away at Doncaster.
Fair play.
So Gillingham still struggling. Mansfield won. I mean, Mansfield are going to be up there or thereabouts. But
yeah, I'm happy for their owners. So they bounced back after the Wembley heartache. So that's good. That is. How did Salford do?
Salford, they lost at home to Tranmere.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I think that was maybe their second defeat of the season. So they're on the same points as we are at the moment in sixth place. Grimsby have started pretty well. They're in eighth at the moment. Let's see how they did at the weekend. They just skimmed past. They won away at Colchester, who I think also sacked their manager this week.
I did see a few fans asking about Fergie going in there, on Twitter. So that'd be great for them. They've got a lot of good young players. Wouldn't be a bad if they managed to land them. It's shaking out a little bit as I look at the table. Stockport has still had a slow start. They're 1-1 in 6 by the looks of it in 16th. And they got 0-0 at home to Harrogate at the weekend. Right.
So, yep, that's where we are with League Two. And a quick shout out for the National League, Chesterfield and Wrexham 1 and 2 in the National League at the moment. So Wrexham having a bit of a better start to this season than they did last season.
Absolutely. And I think they got their streaming things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What do you make of them succumbing to Ryan Reynolds and
yeah, fair play, owner power. We need him to get on it now to get more money from the Premier League for us. Listen, whatever helps. Look, if that makes life easier for everyone else and they get more money, absolutely brilliant. So well done. That's what you want to see.
So we need to get them promoted into the EFL so he can become
correct. And then have a word with Deadpool about all those other things that we need done. And then I see. I think the big talking point was you wanted to talk about was Todd Bowley. He's everyone.
Yeah,
the football elite. The elite snobbery are losing their shit over Todd's ideas.
Yeah. So what do you make of what's been going on at Chelsea?
It's very a lot of people complain you don't hear from owners.
Yeah.
And then you get an owner who does a Q&A or whatever it was, and it's their first kind of public appearance and talks openly. And then from that, you get an onslaught of,
Yeah.
I've seen the comments. It's American this, American that. And, it doesn't know what he's talking about. And stick to baseball. And, some top journalists who I'm friends with were absolutely slaughtering him. Like he had the idea for the North and South game. The talking point for me was that if it raised 200 million or 300 million, give it to the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
That was the point a lot of people missed, including some of the snobs and the journalists who moaned about it. Well, as an owner in the league where we only get a small fraction of all the Premier League money, we'd all be collectively delighted to get that 200 million if North and South played a one-off game. Then you got all the Premier League managers saying, where are we going to fit the game in? And well, cry me a fucking river. You've got like 3 squads the size of ours. So, and if you're doing a North and South, you're talking about hundreds of players and basically 22 playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I against the idea? If it benefits the EFL, here's an idea. See if you can sell the game. See if there's a TV deal. Put the pot on the table and say, look, this is for the EFL. This is why we're doing it. A lot of the players from North and South played in the EFL. So it's not the worst idea in the world if it helps us. And what they could say is, if it raised 100 million or 200 million, we're going to put a pot together, and a lot of it is going to go to the League One and League Two, who get a lot less than the Championship. Yeah. And by the way, it can only be used for them to improve their stadia, so it can make ticket prices cheaper for fans. So it's a win-win for the clubs and the fans. So why are we dismissing it straight off the bat because the big bad American, who's like a billionaire, has come up with the idea? I don't get it. So everyone loses their shit collectively. And sometimes it's like, calm down. I understand. I know Gary Neville and a few people have been out there talking about American owners, and they're all entitled to their opinion, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think Salford would be getting any Chelsea players on loan, so I'd be very careful owning the club sometimes because you're going to damage potential relationships. That's just the way it works in football. I think you got to give the guy time. He's bought a football club that was in trouble. He's obviously put a lot of money in again. He's obviously worth a lot of money. He's got a lot of contacts. Yes, it's a concern having 14 US-based owners who work in the sports world where there's no relegation. Mm-hmm. So as a pyramid, you're always going to be like, shit, you don't want to close shop. But I'd like to think they're not tone deaf either, these owners, where they're just going to go, right, we're going to do a Super League. We're going to shut off the pyramid. We're going to, they know that would be Harry Carey. They know that would just create an absolute PR.
And how even their own fans would respond to that.
Yeah, and they tried it with the Super League, and that was a smack in the arse quickly. And you saw how the American owners went 360 straight away just on a few protests, and that was like 24 hours. So I think that fear is overblown. About having 14. You can't stop Americans buying football clubs. So you couldn't stop me buying a USL club in America. We're in the 21st century here. I'm always a bit worried, about societies and alleged democracies that bring in rules that aren't quite democratic. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of that, in the last 2 years under this administration here. And you're just going, wow, I can't believe we live in a democracy, and some of the things, vaccine mandates and passports and some of the stuff that's been brought in. And I'm just like, my head's spinning. So I look at it and go, you can't ban American ownership. You can't, yes, you can stop Saddam Hussein buying a Premier League club if he's still alive. You can't, you can stop the Ayatollah, in Iran or whatever else buying it. There's a fit and proper persons test. But if a hedge fund guy worth $1 billion or $1 trillion, if Jeff Bezos decides he's done with playing rockets to the moon and Mars and decides to buy a Premier League club, and then Elon Musk decides, well, I'm going to compete with that, and he wants to buy one, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're not going to stop it happening. I understand the need for making sure no Super League, making sure the pyramid's secure. Well, that's fine. We can write that within the rules that can't be changed. That could be done even now. That no vote could supersede the fabric of the pyramid.
The charter of the league.
Yeah, the charter. You could put that in now saying no Premier League vote. You could even put in there, it would need half of the 92 clubs to vote to change the pyramid structure of relegation and promotion. You know what I mean? So you could do all sorts of things in there. Yes, everyone's desperate for a regulator. To what end? So I just think some of it was blown up. I think some of it was very unfair. I think some of the things Todd said probably he'd want to take back. But it's his first interview. So it's like, give him a chance. It's like, all right, you got the Glazer situation. Then you got the Cronkies. But, the Kroenke sports management, I've said this before when I hear about how Arsenal aren't one of the rich big boys. Stan Kroenke spent $5 billion building a stadium in California. It's no surprise he's backed the manager at Arsenal, and they've spent over $300 million the last 3 windows. They are probably the richest club in the Premier League, the second, after the Man City club.
And they spent all the money building the Emirates as well.
And that was, I think, before him, but they were still paying for it when he came in. And he replaced about 300 million of high interest debt on that with his own money in there that's now owed to him. Mm-hmm. All the moves he's made and putting his son in there seems to be working. And if you look at Arsenal now and all the noise the last 2 years about Arteta, but if you look now, the process is paying off. And now all the same detractors and moaners and protesters will be like, oh, we're really well run and we're spending 200 million every transfer window. And, Emirates is wonderful and da-da-da-da-da. So sometimes it's kind of like, you don't need to go to the ledge. You don't need to lose your shit. Calm down. And I just think a 25-minute interview by somebody brand new to the business, it's like, there were comments made about him running around doing this and doing that, whatever. He bought a football club. He lost all the staff. He lost the technical director. Yeah. He lost the director of football. They obviously didn't want to stay. Their allegiance was to Roman Abramovich. I don't think he pushed them out. And then you're suddenly faced with, I'm just thinking if it was me, shit, I can go and hire a football director in a day. But the problem is if it's the wrong hire, I fuck up. So what I'm going to try and do is get through this window, use the people around me, and then after the window's closed, go and get a director of football. Yeah. I like Potter. I think it's a great change. I think it's a really, really good person for Chelsea. The window wasn't a disaster. I think they made a lot of good signings. Probably, the only one was a Aubameyang. I think they could have got like a better centre forward. Mm-hmm. I just think some of the criticisms it's just a bit OTT. And the snobbery again. Some of my friends in the media. I don't know if you felt it.
The anti-Americanism.
It is. And none of it's misogynistic. Like I know Gary Neville was saying him and Andy Holt were getting a bit of grief. It was misogyny. Was that the right word? They were getting a bit of.
I didn't see what they. I mean, I've seen
xenophobia. I think they were being accused of being xenophobic about Americans, and I don't think both Holt or Neville meant that about Americans. If an American farmer or rancher decided to buy a club, I don't think they'd give a shit. I think they're coming from a place of if it's all owned by hedge fund people who are going to determine our future, that's a problem. I don't disagree with that. But I think it's very difficult, again, in a democratic society, to stop people with money buying something. I just, where does it stop? So, it's like, we can't buy that house. We don't want another, rich oil billionaire down the street because of climate change. So we're going to stop people to do what energy industry buying houses in a road. That's something your pals in California will probably come out with next. Do you know what I mean? So that, while they're trying to keep their lights on, that doesn't work. That is not the answer. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you can write articles, you can talk about it, you can debate it, whatever else. Here's a reality. These people are so wealthy, they will sue you and they will stop that happening and someone will do it and you get fucked in court and be a waste of time. So instead of digging them out, instead of having a go and being elite snobbery and whatever else, why don't you work with them? Why don't you, have conversations with them? Maybe Todd needs to sit down with lots of those journalists who are writing those articles and go, hey, spend half an hour with me, get to know me, hit me with all your questions. And then they can make a proper judgment, not on a 25-minute snap interview. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think being American is an easy target for the media. One, when you talk about culture war. And, the media are always wanting to stoke up culture wars. But two, this, I think, maybe an old school perception that Americans know nothing about football. And now, obviously, coming in and owning half the business.
I mean, with all due respect, I think anybody who's worth billions and made billions from working in private finance or equity or whatever else deserves respect. A lot more respect that's been given. And, I cringe when I see comments from people who know nothing about running businesses. And have failed at running businesses as well. And that's not a dig at anyone in particular. Sometimes I cringe and go, calm down. The billionaires aren't the bad guys. Some of them are, a lot of them aren't. Some of them have been working, Todd Bowley's been around, I don't know. He's in his 50s. He's not 25. He's not a lottery winner. He's a guy who's obviously very, very intelligent. He surrounds himself with good people. And I'm sure he'll do the same at Chelsea. And I'm sure as it goes on, he'll learn. He's not the Glazers. They're different. They're a different kettle of fish, the way they've operated with Man United, with their dividends and their payments and the interest and the loans. He's a much cleverer guy, in my opinion. And I think he's a bit like Kroenke, who gets a lot of unfair criticism. And Kroenke, if you look at all the different franchises he runs them really well. So, I think we need to take a pause for a second. Yes, there's loads wrong with our system in football. Yes, a regulator could help potentially. Yes, we all need more money down the pyramid. And the first guy who comes along with an idea to throw money our way, is screamed down. I don't think that helps. So
No,
there's DMAC's
it's,
opinion.
it's not going
Hard
to
truth.
encourage others to come up with ideas themselves, is it?
Absolutely not. It's a 90-minute game where you're probably going to have players play 30 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
All these managers losing their shit about this extra game. Yeah, you've got no problem taking 6 million to fly to fucking Timbuktu during the summer, and whatever else. So cry me a fucking river for 30 minutes of your players' time for a game on a Monday or Tuesday, maybe in a week where there is that free space.
Yeah. There's a couple of other things before I get to some questions. One was that EFL and National League clubs are going to be allowed to call off matches if they clash with Wales or England games during the World Cup. And I just wondered if, as a club, you have any position.
I agree with that.
Any thoughts?
I agree with that. I think it makes sense. Absolutely. So, we're all suffering after the pandemic. We losing the game even last week, a home game that's in your budget. And yes, I understand the Queen died and there was a reason for it, but there was still a lot of clubs that need to pay their wages based on home gates.
Yeah.
And, getting that moved to a Tuesday, you're talking about losing 30, 40 grand. That's a lot of money to League One and League Two clubs.
Yeah.
So I think if there's an England game on the same time as our game, we're going to lose money. So the opportunity to change it, absolutely. I agree fully.
Would that require both clubs to agree, or is that a decision that the home team?
I presume the home club will get the chance to choose.
Okay. Ryan Sparks has been in the press talking about matches kicking off at 1 p.m. to save money on energy. And I think it may be something that Barry commented on as well a couple of days ago. Just any thoughts on that idea of over the winter moving?
If it saves money, I'm all for it. It's all about saving money. Energy bills are going through the roof. The clubs get hurt as well. So I think Ryan's got something there as long as your gate's not affected. As long as there's not a negative outlook where you might save 5 grand on electricity, but you've lost 20 grand on the gate. So everything's relative. Yeah. But I'm not against that either.
All right, we've got a couple of questions that have come in.
Sure.
Jamie, who is a Scarborough Athletic fan, Jamie says, I wonder if Darragh could shed some light on when appointing a new manager, how the contracts of the staff they want to bring in with them get sorted so quickly and how are they negotiated?
Well, usually it's a team effort. Like with Grant, he already had his staff that he wanted to bring in, particularly his assistant. And it's usually them two you start with, and then you build the rest around. Or if the club's already got a sports scientist and a physio, and a goalie coach, well, then the assistant and the manager have to take what's there. Sometimes you don't get to choose because it's a cost. But, a lot of the time when you're getting a manager, him and his assistant are the ones. Darren was the same. I think you had Gavin Strachan at the time. And it was a win double. You had to negotiate both the contracts at the same time. A lot of Grant wouldn't have come without his number two. So, he's of his belief of Cliff's an important part of the package. So I'm not coming unless you agree terms with him. So that's the same for a lot of managers. That's just the way it goes. And it's the same equal measure term of contract. You're not going to have an assistant with a 2-year contract and a manager with a 3-year contract. It's usually matching. Because a lot of the time, whilst you say you fire a manager and the number two takes the team, eventually if that manager gets another job, that number two's gone.
I got a question from Paul. Paul asks, why are there so many big name players still looking for clubs? Is it because they have wage demands that are too high, agent fees, not wanting to relocate, or are they just not bothered about continuing to play?
I think some of them are so well paid they can afford to wait. I think some of them have been ill-advised and poorly advised by agents who are gobshites, who will say, don't worry, you're going to pick up a deal, in season or whatever when it starts. I'm always of the mind, if you've got work on the table, you take the work. If you believe in yourself to that point where you'll wait it out, fine. But a lot of people have spent their budgets. So the more the market goes that way after a window closes, it's diminishing returns what you're going to get offered because a lot of the wages and everything has been spent. There isn't any spare money at the well. So, to be advised to wait till September, October, November is fucking ludicrous. And not only that, if we went and signed a player now who hasn't played all summer, it would take 2 months before they're match fit. So you're writing off 2 months of money. Not many people are going to do that. And when we've done it in the past, they haven't worked out. They've been pretty poor. There's free signings coming in or whatever else, month to month. So it's not like the NFL where you got people playing on the last year, to get a move or to get a franchise tag or whatever else. We're in a different industry. So I always think it's Russian roulette for a player to make that decision or let an agent make that decision for them. It just baffles me. So many players are so influenced by fucking morons.
Now, a question from Glyn. Glyn is a Posh fan
Sure.
and said, after Posh released a statement on the website saying that we're willing to work with the council on the new stadium, I'm just wondering why you released the statement and the story behind it. I'm not sure if you know anything about that.
I think, yeah, Randy released it.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I saw it before it went out. So, and again, that's something he deals with. So, unfortunately, Glenn will have to maybe, message him on Twitter, and I'm sure he'll answer him. So, yeah.
Steve asks a few questions, and let me get to a couple of them at least. One is around policing. A question around one, is there an average cost of policing a fixture at London Road?
Yeah, it's very expensive. I'd rather there's no policing in most of the games. And it does my head in when I see some games where you don't need policing, but you're being forced to take policing. It's really, really substantial cost. And that's not a dig to the police. They do a great job. I love the posh cops who come and do the games. But it's an expense the club could do without. And, this is where you want your fan base to be well behaved. And 99% of them are. There's a little young band of fans that cause a little bit of mayhem that we need to get cleaned up. Because I don't want our current fans getting upset with them, and I don't want them giving us a bad name when they go away, where then you're suddenly forced with more police costs than for games.
Yeah, and does that change? Is it like a sliding scale to attendance, expected attendance?
It's certain games. It's certain, we played Leeds, we played Millwall.
Games.
There's a little bit of a historical thing there with the police. It's kind of a bit skewed, and the safety advisory will say, well, you need police, you need this, which is a bit unfair. Millwall in 2022 isn't Millwall 1978 or 1988, and same for Leeds. So sometimes it's generational. And I just think sometimes there's this prejudicial view on certain clubs. Like I would imagine when we play Cambridge, we're going to get hammered with a police bill. Yeah. It's a big local derby. I understand we're going to need some police. All I'll say is let's tone it down. There's a cost of living crisis going on.
Do you have any control over how much policing is at a game?
No.
Therefore, how much it costs?
No, it goes through Cy, who runs all of our safety, who's in charge of match day safety and whatever. He's an ex-policeman himself. That's why we recruited him. He's one of the best. And he will fight that battle with the safety advisory group and plan it out and map the match out and go. And then obviously contact the police. You get a quote. Everything's like that. And I'm sure with inflation, I'm sure police are more expensive this year than last year.
Yeah, and you don't push back on that. Yeah. And it's kind of a follow-up question. It was a question to both of us.
Sure.
Do we see a time when football clubs like Posh, like Bradford, can become self-policing, particularly in the lower tiers?
No, because I think, after COVID and all the pent-up stuff, I think things are worse now with pitch invasions. That's not a good look for our game. Their fans are assaulting players, vice versa, all of that going on. So we're miles away from that. You'd like to think, we always joke like we went to the boxing. And America sports have it so good about getting in and out of stadium. We were in that stadium in 2 minutes. We were out of that stadium in 2 minutes. I didn't really notice a big police presence, even those 22,000 Mexicans coming for the fight, who were the best supporters and just so atmospheric. But again, the US Open tennis, same thing. You're in and out really quickly. It's so well drilled and organized. I don't know if it's the stadium itself or the way it's designed, but I don't foresee a day where we'll be self-policed. No. I don't think it'll happen.
No.
Never. Not in our lifetime, Philip.
I don't think so either. And we have the same problems that you are with, the minority of fans actually creating more trouble and, more fans being pulled up and
little gobshites
and, being caught for doing stuff at away games. And, that just gets you an even worse rep, which then increases your policing costs, which is something we're struggling with.
Like I keep saying to parents, do your fucking jobs better.
It's interesting you say about US sports. It's always amazed me as well how they intermingle. The fans from both clubs intermingle. Now there'll be some places you go where there's a bit more verbals than other places. But I was at the US Open Cup final last week or 2 weeks ago here in Orlando, where there was 25,000, which was capacity for it. I don't remember seeing a policeman in sight. Now there's probably a few hiding out in the concourse somewhere, just making sure that
probably
people aren't getting a bit too rowdy. But
I've been to NFL games and I've been to NFL games. You have both sets of fans sat next to each other.
Yeah.
You got family members who are like, Seahawks fan, a family member who's a Bronco, and one's wearing the strip, and there's never really any drama. Now, that can't happen at football games,
right?
Because there'd be murder committed.
It's the tribalism that makes
it's the tribalism. You're absolutely correct, and that's the term for it. So, look, different cultures, different worlds, different lives. We probably sound a bit pro-American today. I guess sometimes when you live here, you do act like that, and it's. I get upset when arseholes in the UK give it the big one about American politics and are digging out ex-presidents or doing whatever else, and praising current presidents. And I'm like, well, yeah, you don't live here. You don't pay taxes here. Your kids don't go to school here. None of this affects you. It affects me when my friends vote the way they vote. Mm-hmm. And on that note, we'll leave it there.
So I want to thank everybody, as always, for listening in today.
Yeah, brilliant. And listen, so some fans are panicking we wouldn't do a podcast. Like, we committed that we would get a good 30 plus episodes this season, win, lose, or draw. So, we were always planned to do this one. You're a busy guy. I'm a busy guy. And we're always going to do it. It's not going
to be based on whether you win or lose. Whether you
and we're going to handle questions. You rightly so. You write down stuff before and go, look, these are the talking points. And you can't shy away from that. Yeah. Otherwise, you are a coward. So, as the esteemed former estate agent, I'll sign off and say, keep the questions coming.
Yeah.
And we'll give our best opinions on all things that matter. And for the journalists who've been killing us recently with certain articles with inflammatory headlines, do me a fucking favor. I got my lawyer on speed dial. First of all, give the podcast credit and a link. And second of all, be very careful how you term an article with the headline, because I get people coming at me and they haven't listened to it, and they're like hammering me, and they should listen, So again, buyer beware. So on that note, I'm off to sell houses. Phil, I don't know what you're doing for the rest of your day.
I'm just hanging out, running some digital events, and in fact, I'm planning for a trip to Barcelona on Thursday. So,
hey, excellent day. We'll have fun with that. Go kill it. Yeah. Go kill it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Questions, of course, contact@hardtruthfootball.com. As Darragh said, keep them coming. Until next week, we'll see you again soon.
All the best, guys.